Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Saif al-Islam vows to fight until Libya is liberated as rebels push toward Zlitan. Somalis fasting for Ramadan have no access to iftar meals. And world powers rule out military intervention in Syria. Mosaic, world news from the Middle East, begins now.
UN humanitarian aid chief Valerie Amos said the famine in the Horn of Africa may spread to 6 more regions in Somalia.
As many Somalis have welcomed the holy month of Ramadan, the world is still trying to deal with the food crisis that has been rocking several areas of the African Horn due to harsh waves of drought. World organizations have described the humanitarian suffering in Somalia as a new chapter of a series of tragedies and as an exceptional case facing Somalia over the past 2 decades.
The displaced Somalis who fled the famine are bracing for difficult days during Ramadan due to food shortages.
Our correspondent in Mogadishu sheds light on part of the refugees' suffering as the month of Ramadan begins.
While
hundreds of millions of Muslims around the world have welcomed the holy month of Ramadan amid a joyous and festive atmosphere, Somalis at the refugee camps are enduring hardship as many are unable to secure a decent life. With the arrival of the holy month, many are living under harsh conditions due to homelessness and displacement. Searching for food has brought these new refugees together at this camp. Here they share their painful stories with visitors. Many were not able to secure suhoor or iftar meals for their families.
Ramadan has begun. We couldn't find anything to eat at suhoor or iftar. If there was an actual scale to measure the magnitude of crisis facing Muslims, this is it. We urge anyone who can help to act quickly and to give now.
Bushra Hussein is a refugee who started the month of Ramadan while living at this camp. She is complaining about negligence and lack of aid. She said that she couldn't find anything to offer her children, so she asked for their patience. Despite her tragic ordeal, she is fasting. She hopes that the next few days will bring relief.
We are in the month of Ramadan. However, we don't have food for sihur or iftar. We break our fast by drinking water. Ramadan is a duty of every Muslim. We hope to receive emergency food aid and plastic covers for our cottage soon.
Now Yoon is not in a better situation than Bushra. Her children are hungry, with no wood fire being lit at their cottage on this first day of Ramadan. She sometimes thinks about giving up hope as her living conditions continue to deteriorate. Her ordeal is similar to many famine refugees in Somalia.
No wood fire is being lit in our cottage, even though we are in Ramadan. We don't have food or drinking water. The children need food and milk. They gave us these useless food stamps.
The stories told by the drought victims are similar, as the number of displaced refugees continue to rise, especially amid the limited aid which is disproportionate to the magnitude of this crisis. With a life overshadowed by misery and deprivation, the famine refugees of Somalia began the holy month of Ramadan, hoping to make their voices heard to charity organizations and kind-hearted people in a bid to save them from their nightmare of famine. Omar Mahmoud, Al Jazeera, Mogadishu.
In the headlines today, at least 7 revolutionary forces have lost their lives in a fresh round of fighting against troops loyal to ruler Muammar Gaddafi. Hospital sources say scores have also been wounded in the western town of Zlitan. This after anti-Gaddafi fighters captured the town from the regime forces. Attacks by pro-Gaddafi troops have intensified as opposition fighters are pushing their way towards the capital, Tripoli, where the long-time ruler is holed up. Taking over control of Zlitan is viewed as a big gain for the revolutionaries, as it's the first of 3 major towns that stand between Tripoli and Misrata, which is held by the revolutionaries. Lizzie Filan is our correspondent, joining us now live from Tripoli with the latest. Lizzie, first of all, tell us about the fighting that took place in Zlitan. We're hearing of at least 7 of the revolutionary fighters losing their lives there.
Yes, well, the people here in Tripoli are really amazed by this news from the Western media, because from their friends in Zlitan, all they are hearing about, in fact, is NATO bombing heavily the area of Zlitan, and they hear that, in fact, far from the fact that the rebels are taking over Zlitan, they have heard that, in fact, the opposition forces tried to come into Zlitan via a French ship, but were unable to, because in fact the people in Tripoli are saying here that Zlitan is very much secure and in control of pro-Gaddafi forces. So the people here in Tripoli are incensed that what they are calling the lies coming out of the Western media at a time when during Ramadan, Tripoli itself is continuing to be bombed heavily during the day and nighttime. I'm seeing the bombs dropping myself from around my hotel in central Tripoli, yet the Western media is continuing to choose to focus on the so-called successes of the opposition, despite the news a few days ago that has rocked Tripoli about the death of Abdel Fattah Yunus, which in fact is showing that the opposition is disintegrating before our eyes. And as well, after the news now some time ago by Shalgam himself, Abdulrahman Shalgam, who confessed in the Al-Hayat newspaper that he had lied to the UN Security Council. So the people here in Tripoli are just really amazed that NATO and the international community is continuing to support this aggression against Libya, despite the fact that the pretext has been proven to be false by the man himself who went to the United Nations Security Council.
Right, so what you're telling us, Lizzie, is that the town of Zlitan has not been taken over by the revolutionary forces. They're still in pro-Gaddafi forces' hands. Does this mean that there is still fighting taking place there?
My information is that Zlitan is very much secure, and the fighting is actually taking place in Benghazi since the news of the death of Abdel Fattah Yunus. The Wafala tribe has marched. There is members of the Wafala tribe, which is the largest tribe in Tripoli and the strongest tribe inside Benghazi, who said that they stood up against the opposition. And since then, the opposition forces, with the help of the NATO nations and the Gulfi states, have been attacking members of the Wafala inside Benghazi, and we have reports that around 150 members of the Wafala tribe have been murdered by the opposition forces. So we're hearing mainly of the clashes in Benghazi.
Okay, thanks very much, Lizzie Filan, our correspondent, joining us there live from the Libyan capital, Tripoli. Lizzie, thanks very much. Let's move on with the news now. Russia says NATO's military offensive against Libyan ruler Muammar Gaddafi has reached a dead end. The Russian Foreign Ministry's Middle East and North Africa department says the situation in Libya cannot be resolved by military means. It believes negotiations are the only solution. In March, Moscow abstained from a vote on a UN Security Council resolution that allowed the West to unleash an offensive against Libya. NATO says the war is aimed at protecting the civilian population and to force Gaddafi to give up power. However, scores of civilians have lost their lives in the airstrikes. Yemeni anti-regime protesters have once again rallied in the flashpoint city of Taiz. They want the downfall of Ali Abdullah Saleh's regime and the trial of its officials. The protest comes a day after the regime forces killed 2 opposition tribesmen and injured several more in Taiz. Meanwhile, powerful tribal leaders have formed an alliance to protect anti-regime protesters against what they call bloody actions. Yemen has been the scene of nearly 6 months of rallies demanding a regime change. Protesters angry at corruption and soaring unemployment say they want a new Yemen built. Political unrest has deteriorated the already poor economy. People face severe shortages of food, water and other basic supplies. Violence has also surged, especially in the southern parts of the country.
كم استمرت العمليات العسكرية التي تنفذها قوات الأمن السورية خلال الليلة الماضية.
Syrian security forces continued to carry out military operations last night. Rights organizations said that yesterday's death toll reached 24. Witnesses in Damascus reported that Syrian security forces killed at least 6 protesters after midnight in an attack on Arbain, an eastern suburb of Damascus. Syrian official sources said that 7 bodies were found in Kazu, a suburb of Hama.
وجدت في منطقة كازو إحدى ضواحي حما.
The chaos in Syria has been ongoing for nearly 5 months and still continues. The Syrian army's military operation is currently focused in the city of Hama. Hama residents escaped to neighboring villages as the army's tanks advanced towards the center of the city as part of a military operation aimed at repressing protests. Activists say that the army's nighttime attacks targeted residential neighborhoods and a hospital, killing an uncertain number of people.
We saw 33 shells in 6 minutes. At the same time, there was heavy machine gun fire.
Syrian state TV aired what it said to be images of protests in Hama this past Sunday, showing whom it referred to as armed infiltrators among protesters, carrying rifles, sticks, and knives. Night protests prevailed in a number of Syrian cities after Taraweeh prayers in the first days of Ramadan. Our BBC correspondent in Damascus says that protests continue in the capital and various parts of the country, demanding an end to the military attacks on Hama. Diplomatically, Italy recalled its ambassador from Damascus and suggested the rest of the EU countries follow its example. For his part, Chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff Mike Mullen excluded the possibility of any direct military intervention to put a quick end to the violence in Syria.
There's no indication whatsoever that the Americans...
There is no indication whatsoever that the Americans, that we would get involved directly with respect to this. We are trying to exert more pressure politically and diplomatically to bring about the change that many countries are seeking.
The UN Security Council is continuing its meeting today to discuss a draft resolution to condemn the military attacks that the Syrian regime is launching on protesters. The Council convened a closed-door session yesterday without reaching a decision.
إذن يستأنف مجلس الأمن الدولي مشاوراته اليوم لبحث مشروع قرار مقترح يدين العمليات العسكرية السورية.
The UN Security Council is continuing its meeting today to discuss the proposed draft resolution condemning the Syrian military operations aimed at repressing the anti-government protests. The Council convened a closed-door session yesterday amid reports on Russia's obvious change of position. Diplomats were quoted saying that European countries, including the UK, prepared a draft resolution to submit to the UN Security Council, denouncing the Syrian authorities for resorting to the use of force against the protesters. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Susan Rice, described the events in Syria as disturbing.
As for
the other international positions, Iran's foreign ministry spokesman indicated that there is regional interference affecting the tension in Syria.
If the Syrian people have legitimate demands that they express in peaceful ways, then we are against the use of violence against their protests. However, there is clear evidence in Syria that there is regional interference in what is happening.
أصدر ائتلاف شباب ثورة 14 من فبراير في البحرين بيانا بمناسبة
Bahrain's February 14th Revolution Coalition issued a statement on the occasion of the holy month of Ramadan. The coalition called on Bahrainis to escalate their mobilization and protest across the country, confirming it maintains its demands for self-determination since it's a UN-mandated right. The coalition stressed the importance of national unity among the Bahraini people, while it condemned the abductions, torture, arrests of women, and the crimes of the Saudi occupation forces. This comes as Al-Wifaq Society condemned the arbitrary dismissal of employees, describing it as collective punishment. In addition, it warned against the excessive use of violence against demonstrators. In another development, crowds held a funeral for martyr Isat el-Tawil, who was a resident of Sitra Island and died after inhaling poison gas dispersed by security forces in residential areas.
After the failure of the dialogue and the Bahraini regime's continued use of the security option to repress the people's demands, revolutionary escalation and increasing the protest action is now the alternative weapon in the hands of the Bahraini people in order to attain their rights. As demonstrations continue in a number of towns and villages, the Bahraini regime's forces do not hesitate to use poison gas, stun grenades, and live bullets to scare the citizens. The villages of Azari, Nuedrat, Al-Ekir, Al-Maali, Mahza, and Wadian witnessed excessive use of force to disperse demonstrators as Bahrainis held a funeral for an additional martyr. The man from the area of Sitra died after inhaling poison gas. In the town of Tubli, demonstrators chanted against the presence of the Saudi occupation forces, confirming their commitment to the popular demands, rejecting any attempt by the regime to force a compromise. And not only did the authorities use excessive violence to suppress the protests, but they went after demonstrators at their workplaces and are attempting to starve their families through the continued termination of thousands of workers and employees. The Wifaq National Islamic Society condemned the dismissals, considering them to be in violation of the basic rights of citizens and human rights, which will lead to a humanitarian disaster.
We expected the cabinet to look into the decisions of the delegations and the blatant sectarian discrimination, the deprivation and the killing of the dreams of the young men and women of this country. We expected the cabinet to say that this is unjust. It should review the delegation's policies, not adopt them. It is as if there is an official policy to discriminate.
Al-Wifaq also expressed its solidarity with the families that gathered at the Ministry of Labor on Monday, describing the government's decisions to fire thousands of employees and workers as collective punishment, represented by starving the people and cutting off their livelihood. It stressed the necessity to immediately reinstate all those fired, offer compensation for their losses, and restitution.
Our top story today, organizers of the nationwide social uprising are formulating their demands in the areas of housing, welfare, education, health, and economic policy. They have written a draft document in consultation with economic advisors that reportedly includes the estimated cost to the state budget. It also claims that once implemented, the income generated from the new measures would exceed their costs. Activists aim to present the completed proposal to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the coming days. Topping the wish list, of course, are housing concerns. Activists called for the Lands Authority bill presented by the Prime Minister to be rescinded prior to a slated vote this evening in the Knesset. They also demanded that the construction of public housing be added, legislation to control rents, and changes in building laws that will force contractors to offer affordable housing. They insist on revamping the income tax code, a reduction in indirect taxes, and a dramatic rise in the minimum wage. In the area of education, the document calls for free public schools, starting with children as young as 3 months, and reduction in class size. And as for other sectors, activists want the number of positions for doctors, nurses, policemen, firemen, and social workers to meet the levels in other OECD countries. As thousands continue to camp out in tent cities across the country, protesters say that their sense of camaraderie continues to grow.
We are already victorious every day, because every day we can see people being together, exchanging things, being kind to each other, being loving to each other, and you don't need any government or policy to make that happen. We can take care of each other.
Well, meanwhile, dozens of students took part in a march from the tent city on Rothschild Boulevard to Tel Aviv's Government Plaza today. They carried bales of hay on their backs, claiming that they have become the state's donkeys. The army has issued restraining orders against 12 settlers from the West Bank. The residents of Yitzhar and other Jewish settlements will be banned from part or all of the West Bank for up to 1 year. Police and Shin Bet operatives arrested the men on suspicion that they planned and orchestrated widespread covert violence against Palestinians. Those detained are charged with vandalizing a number of mosques, cars, and buildings owned by Palestinians in what the settlers call price tag operations. In an unprecedented ruling today, the Supreme Court ordered the state to dismantle the Migron settlement, the largest illegal West Bank outpost, by March 2012. In the decision, Supreme Court President Dorit Beinish harshly criticized the government for failing to dismantle Migron, which is home to some 50 families, despite earlier promises that it would do so. The government has admitted that the outpost is built on land owned by Palestinians. Even so, Beinish recognized the difficulties in dismantling Migron, but added that it could have and should have been prevented in the first place. This is the first time the Supreme Court has ordered the dismantling of an illegal outpost, and the decision is likely to cause a political storm among supporters of Jewish settlements in the West Bank.
With the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan, Iraqi families are preparing to shop for the necessary foods at the market.
Citizens of Mosul province are complaining about the price hike of certain food products that are considered the most basic foods for Ramadan. They called on relevant officials to monitor the sellers and stop them from raising their prices.
As the holy month of Ramadan began, Mosul's markets witnessed unusual shopping activity with a large number of customers. They go to stores and meat markets to buy food to put on their table for iftar or fast breaking. Traditionally, Iraqis serve a variety of famous local dishes. As usual, the price of meat rose to levels that may be too high for many families with limited incomes.
I asked the government to monitor the sellers. They create the basic problem. The sellers completely control the market. The goods they import are expired and overpriced. Local Iraqi meats are very expensive because the price of feed has risen. Farmers and cow breeders buy local feed at high prices, 13,000 or 14,000 dinars per kilo. The imported feed only costs 7,000 or 8,000 per kilo, but it's very poor quality.
We ask the sellers to have sympathy. This is the month for compassion and mercy. They should treat the poor with appropriate prices. People need to eat, people need to live. Most of the people are unemployed and have nothing to do, and they have very low incomes. As a retiree, my salary lasts me only 10 days.
For their part, the city's security institutions affirm their commitment to the security plan during the holy month. They are deployed to guarantee safety for the citizens, while the security situation is improving noticeably.
In fact, the instructions and plans from the command center and the Director General of the Ninawa Police affirm that this month, for the holy month of Ramadan, we will closely monitor the security situation in the city to protect the citizens. When they shop, visit relatives, or go to hospitals, we must protect their safety. As you see, it's pretty hard to walk in the streets this crowded.
Despite the high prices, citizens cannot give up what their hearts desire during the month of fasting. On the other hand, their lack of trust for imported frozen meats forced them to buy fresh Iraqi meats to serve on their dining tables during the blessed month. From Mosul City, Khalid Jagouri, Al-Iraqiya.
After a long wait and much anticipation, the former president of the largest Arab country, Hosni Mubarak, will be prosecuted in the court in Cairo on charges that may lead to the death penalty, as exceptionally tightened security measures were put in place in the city.
The trial of former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak, his two sons, and a number of his associates is expected to start on Wednesday in Cairo. It is a case that will echo across the Arab world. Official sources confirmed that the 83-year-old Mubarak, who is detained in a hospital in Sharm el-Sheikh, will be tried in a criminal court in Cairo despite his health condition. Over 8,000 policemen and soldiers will be deployed to protect the defendants and secure their arrival to the courthouse. It is likely that a large number of victims' families will be attending the trial.
We are trying not only a former president, but the president of the largest country in the region. This is the first time in the Arab world that a head of state will be in the defendant's dock.
Mohammed Hosni Mubarak, the criminal and his gang, must be put on a public trial to get what he deserves.
Mubarak could face the death penalty if convicted of the charges against him. The charges include conspiring with his former Interior Minister, Habib al-Adli, and several aides to kill protesters.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible by grants from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Firedoll Foundation, and by support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news, read our blog, get transcripts of past shows, and more at linktv.org/mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.